Hi, my name is Roy Murray Cryer, and I'm going to be talking to you about some findings from our ACR project, looking at how to use behavioural science theories to design interventions to increase the adoption of conservation agricultural-based sustainable intensification technologies. I'm talking to you from the far north Queensland on the land of the Bundabara Yidi of the Yidinji tribe, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge the many colleagues some of whom are mentioned on this slide from institutions across the Eastern Gangetic Plains and other members of our team who've been involved with this project. The project is in 5 locations in the Eastern Gangetic Plains, in Bihar in India, in West Bengal and Malda in India, in Sunsari district in Nepal, in Rangpur and Dinajpur in Bangladesh, and Rajshahi in Bangladesh. And our project, as I said, is using behavioural science insights to look at improving adoption of conservation agricultural technologies. This paper in particular is going to use some results from data collected to gain BSI insights into the design of behavioural experiments to facilitate adoption of these technologies. Just to give you a bit of background, Eastern Gangetic Plains has over 300 million people of amongst the poorest farmers in the world. And the smallholder farmers in the Eastern Gangetic Plains have very small farms ranging from an average of 0.6 of a hectare in Bangladesh to slightly over a hectare in West Bengal and Sunsari in Nepal. They grow up to 3 crops a year, and the cropping systems are mostly rice-based, with rice being the main crop growing during the monsoon season, and maize, wheat, mustard, kidney bean and others growing during the winter season and the early pre-monsoon hot season. Farmers have multiple fields and yields tend to be quite low, as an example of wheat between 1.5 and 2.5 tonnes per hectare. The technologies we are looking at in this area, in this project, in the adoption of, rice transplanters, which are going to be used for unpuddled rice transplanting. That means the soil will not be puddled with the puddlers, and instead just the rice seeds will be planted directly into the field as shown. The other technologies are zero-till machines. In Bangladesh, they mainly have 2-wheel tractors, and so it's effectively a strip-till machine, which is a seeder mounted on the back of a power tiller with some of the tines removed and 2 tines left behind each seeding, 2 tines in front of each seeding tine. In India, they have zero-till machines with knife points, and these are mounted on the 3-point linkage of 40 to 50 horsepower tractors. And these seeders sometimes they're multi-crop seeders, so they can handle everything from rice through to maize. Another technology which is involved with this is sometimes laser levelers, although that's not the major focus of our research. The data collected for this was from focus group discussions and key informant interviews in 4 districts in Bangladesh, India, Nepal in 2019. And this involved 31 focus group discussions of 339 participants, about half of whom were female, and a similar number of farmers and a small number of service providers, and of these, just under half were female. The questions focused on the enhancers and constraints to adoption and the behavioural science insights and factors that we gained from this discussion. The analysis was conducted in vivo using content analysis, and we were looking at enhancers and constraints to adoption, and we were looking at themes from the behavioural factors linked to the BI theories. In terms of discussing some of these theories, we decided to categorise the factors influencing adoption based on their distance or level of abstraction from the decisions being made. And so in this sense, one of the groups of factors are dispositional factors, which are relatively abstract and are stable variables of an individual. And they are things like personality traits, resistance to change, risk tolerance, moral and environmental concerns, and farming objectives. And if you're going to change people's these factors, you need long-term strategies to address. But some of the implications from this are that you initially need to promote less risky technologies. For example, ZT or strip-till wheat, rather than Z-till or strip-till maize, because there are some issues associated with maize as opposed to wheat in some areas, not all areas. So this is context specific. You also need to establish long-term social marketing programs, which you need to consider the framing of the technology around increasing food security, particularly for rice, because that's their staple, decreased drudgery, particularly for women, but also for men, improved opportunities for income and leisure, better soil and farming conditions for future generations. And in doing so, it's important to use adopters from all genders, castes, social and income levels, and combine with scientists and praise the adopters. Scientists are regarded in most of the areas as important people and have some influence. Another group of factors are social factors, which are less abstract and more concrete, and they relate to multiple behaviours and include relationships and interactions, and things such as descriptive norms, which are what other people in the community do, injunctive norms are what they think others expect of them, and signalling motives. These are options that provide higher status and image. Strategies arising from this include having cross visits to farmers, farmer groups, federation, field sites, along with scientists, to work with groups of farmers for mutual support and social modelling, to reinforce messages of success and provide social recognition, to create comparisons of yield, water and labour use in communications, and perhaps to establish graduation programs and certification when particular levels of adoption have been achieved. The other group of factors are cognitive factors, which are most concrete and relate directly to learning and decision-making about particular technologies. This is people's awareness, knowledge and skills, and their perceived behavioural control over their ability to change. Also, perceived benefits, costs and risks of the technology versus their existing technologies. And we need to make messages and interventions specific to the intervention and context. What we've found is there are considerable differences in the awareness, knowledge and skills of farmers about the technologies across locations and across farmers. So therefore, the messages need to be relevant, timely and appropriately sequenced depending on the stage of adoption for farmers. They need to be framed suitably. They need to be simple and resonate with and be relevant to the target audiences or the adopter segments we are considering. We need to have messages that can increase perceptions of self and collective control or efficacy. We need to make use of respected local influences and networks and address misperceptions and lack of knowledge about innovations. Other issues are to particularly address the perceptions of behavioural control by using training, using observations of neighbours' farmers' fields where CASI has been adopted successfully, and to have discussions and support when visiting those fields. The discussions need to be specific to the particular technology and the farmer need, their state of adoption, their size of their farm, and so on. And we need to integrate with actors in the value chain for inputs, for example, for weed control, which is an important issue. We also need to address perceptions of the benefits, costs, and risks, because these differ from location and farmers. Therefore, it's important to initially focus on technologies that are most likely to succeed, because a failure will make it much more difficult to introduce the technology, even if we try to, for something where it's more likely to succeed. We need to have appropriate framing of direct and indirect benefits, and can use micro incentives, vouchers, or just micro incentives for recommended fertilizers and herbicides. So in summary, some of the insights for the design of behavioural science experiments are, as I've already said, to focus on less risky, successful technologies in new areas first, to take advantage of reminders, nudging, and framing of benefits and costs of the technologies using videos, text messages, or pamphlets, or all of those. Use farmer groups, both male and female farmers and service providers who have successfully adopted the technologies to overcome negative norms and increase risk tolerance. To conduct demonstrations and videos that can assist with this. To combine micro incentives and discounts by service providers with farmer pre-commitments, and overall to have social marketing and communication strategies that are simple, provide relevant information, and combine with field visits. They also need to be appropriately sequenced depending on the time of the year and specific to the technology and the context of the farmer. In other words, the situation for them in that year, the situation of the farm, and the level of adoption, their adoption stage. Finally, if we are going to be scaling out these technologies, some insights that arise from this research are, once again, to promote successful and risky technologies first, to make use of both scientists and successful male and female farmers in promoting the technology, use social marketing programs, incorporate demonstrations and service providers to promote it, and to frame messages for key anchors and benefits. For example, for rice, yield is important, particularly the minimum yield, because farmers rely on rice as their staple, and small farmers are particularly concerned about any failure in rice yield. For wheat and maize, which are less a staple, profit is more important and reduced costs are more important. So that is, it is important to have a slightly different focus in the messages for them. Thank you.